Why are these the only depictions of India and Africa that we see in the media? You know, we've all seen it, the feed the kids or whatever from back in the day, or, the Indian food server that's super bad hygiene.
हाँ दे दे भैया सब
10 के बंडल हम लाए।
ठीक है सब हमको और
लीजिए हम 2 पीस और।
हाँ दे दूँगा
Or that India stinks, or that Africa is like everybody's starving. Why is this? When we know both of those countries can be very prosperous. Yes, there's famine and there is poor hygiene everywhere. You know, this country is pretty dirty itself, and we have a lot of starving people. But for some reason, it's like, nah, not in America, just over there. And I don't think anybody can disagree. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've seen Skid Row. I've been there. I've been to, well, really, that's both of it, right? Bad hygiene and starving people that are homeless. But it's like, it's only in those places. It's just racism, I'm unsure why it's gotta be like this, but this is the country that we're in. There's a lot of beautiful places in India. I'm gonna show you a couple right now. There's a lot of great places in Africa. I'm gonna show you now. I've had Middle Eastern people, I've asked Middle Eastern people, I'm like, is it really how they portray in the media? And he's like, no, man. It's not people bombing buses and buildings all the time. There is war going on, a lot of it that we caused, not me, but this country, But it's just always a negative viewpoint. You don't ever hear about good things about the Middle East. You don't ever hear good things about Africa. You don't ever hear good things about India. And that's just those countries. There's plenty of other countries that they crap on and shit on continuously, as if we don't also face those problems. And I think to myself, I'm like, what is the point? What is the point? This country, most of us are obese by the BMI standard, which I don't even really listen to a lot of this stuff because it's just fabricated, and if it doesn't fit the narrative, they just change it to fit the narrative. But I just don't get why we have to, portray stuff like that. I feel like it's insecurity. It doesn't make sense. Here's a clip of Skid Row. And you see this a lot. There's a lot of this going on, but we're made to believe that it's only in other countries because we're so prosperous. And it just doesn't add up. You know, you see Mexico. Now, I admit there isn't as much crapping on Mexico as I thought there'd be. But when you think of Mexico, what do you think? I guess a bunch of people running towards the border, stuff like this. And I guess I just wonder, why do we feel like we're so special? Why do we feel so entitled, so nose in the air? And I think because we don't want to accept that we could also be a third world country. We might even be more third world. We never know because the information is skewed. It's always some reason why it can't be us. There's always some reason why we're better. And it's sad because we just take that off rip, and it's so lazy, you know. I think that's part of the problem. It's just we're just intellectually lazy, and that's good enough for most people. It's good enough for most people to just see a clip of some Indian guy with a big belly eating some crap food, and we think to ourselves, okay, just as long as I'm not the Indian guy. Or we see a clip of some African child, you know, that's starving with a big stomach because there actually is no food. And we think to ourselves, man, I am lucky. But we don't ever consider the fact that there is real problems in this country, you know? As we smell our own farts and step over homeless people, we think to ourselves, yeah, man, yeah, the Indian guy, the Asian guy, you know? And it doesn't make sense. But then again, welcome to America, you know, where it's not us, it's them. You know, it's always the offensive, you know. Before any real information gets out there, we're going to be head on with our racism. We're going to attack first so that we can play like we're better. You know, it's always the terrorist, you know, or it's the Jewish people, or it's the Korean guy that's the enemy. We create fake scenarios where to make us feel special, to make us feel like we're not like them or we're somehow better. You know, most people here are really unhealthy. You know, you may crap on the Indian guy, but I bet you a lot of their food is at least real. You know, while you're scarfing down a Big Mac, smoking your Marlboros, laughing at the African guy, he's eating bananas, fish, you know, drinks. But it's like, because we're American, we're better than. And I never got that. Everything we do is out of insecurity. To hide from the fact that they're poisoning us, they're killing us, they're inflating our money, and we just don't want to believe that maybe these people are freer than us. And there is some truth to what they're saying to some degree. It's because it's a half-truth. You know, it's very easy to point at a few outliers and then make that the big picture, you know, of everybody. Sure, you might see some Indian guy in the street selling food without the best practices. But I don't see why that makes it okay for us to eat fake food. That's all we eat. All we eat is fake food. At least what they're making is somewhat real. You know, we're talking about, oh, the starving kid in Africa. There's homeless people every single day. They're dying, you know, here. We don't even have that figured out. I just think this country is full of glutton. And rather than look in the mirror, we'd rather point the finger, you know, and laugh. But it really just shows how ignorant we are. We are so brainwashed that we really believe that we're some top tier country. Now, we do export money, right? So this country has money, but we don't have health, we don't have freedom, we don't have any of that. And I just don't understand why we think we're so above any of that. You know, we look down upon poor people, which if you're watching this, you're probably not hyper rich. You know, even if you're doing good for yourself, I don't think people can realize that you're not rich enough to be doing all this. And even if you were, that's the problem with America. 1 to 3% are rich, right? And because that's all we see in the media, we just assume that we can't be touched, or it's not that bad here, or, you know, hey, Michael Jordan has $1 billion, you know, he's American, you know, that means everybody else is super rich. We're all millionaires. You know, who else? I don't know. Pick whatever celebrity. That person's rich, so there's not millions of people starving. You know, Mark Zuckerberg, he's super duper rich. So we don't need food programs or anything for people because we're rich. We're doing so well that we don't need these programs. And you'll have people defending this. They're like, yeah, man, yeah. When maybe these other countries have something we don't have, you know? Not to say that some people don't want to come here, right? I get it, you know? We've stolen so much money that people now want to flock here for opportunity. But what they don't realize is there's really no opportunity here. If there were, we'd all actually have money. When I used to live in Wisconsin, I had some African friends who came here, and they were talking about how much of a scam this place is, and how expensive it is, and how nothing is fair. And he was telling me, man, in Africa you could do so much with so little money, man. And in my head, I'm thinking, there's part of the proof. You have people coming to this country expecting one thing, when really it's just a slap in the face, and it's another thing. We don't have it as good as we think we do. But because of media, we make it seem like we're just the greatest ever. That's all we talk about, is how fucking amazing we are. It's just tiresome, man. So when you see this country shitting on other people, just remember, we're just fucking delusional, man.